Ducking. Some fans call it footy smarts, others call it manipulating the umpire, and some call it outright cheating. It's a contentious issue that leaves many fans up in arms about it. The AFL has ducked away from solving this issue, but stick with me, I'm going to explain ducking, how and why it's evolved in our game, and I think I've got a solution to fix it. Hey footy fans, my name's Jeremy and welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about ducking. If you've watched some AFL footy in the last few years, you've probably noticed a trend. A player gets the ball and instead of first trying to dispose of it, they'll manoeuvre their body in such a way to draw a high tackle free kick. This is ducking. These high tackle free kicks can be dubious, confusing, inconsistent and frustrating to watch. In the worst outcome for this situation, a game can be decided by a last minute 50-50 free kick because someone's ducked. 17 out of 18 fans agree that this is not how footy should end. A game should be decided by a player's brilliance, not a manipulation tactic to get a free kick. For the purposes of this video, I've defined ducking as when the ball handler moves their body in an unnatural way to draw a high tackle free kick. This is done by driving with the head, dropping the knees and lifting the shoulder upon being tackled. Types of ducking. You've got the head burrow, when a player gets the ball and dips their head down and tries to get contact from the player tackling. In 2015 the AFL addressed this, and to a large part this has been taken out of our game because players no longer get a free kick. Collapsing of the knees. When a player gets the ball, they drop their knees. And the classic arm lift, or the Selwood shrug as it's known, where a player gets the ball, they're tackled here, and then they lift their arm higher so then the tackle goes up over their head, getting a high tackle. Ducking. How did it evolve? Players like Selwood were trailblazers. Going back 5 or 10 years, there were only a handful of players that could do this skill consistently and effectively. But now it seems that players in their first game of AFL have already mastered this skill and use it in the game. Young players see star players on TV do this so effectively when they're growing up, they want to emulate this, and as soon as they get to the AFL level, they do it in the game. And what this leads to is a higher percentage of players who are playing AFL footy using this high tackle technique. The truth is, the AFL aimed to tackle this back in 2015. They focused specifically on driving with the head, with the intention of minimising the chance that a player gets injured. At this same time in 2015, they focused on the arm lift technique, but they deemed because it's unlikely the player being tackled would be injured, they said this is still going to be called a high tackle. So why do players duck? Well, it's obvious, isn't it? They want to win. They're taught to win. They're not playing to lose. And ducking and getting a free kick is an advantage for themselves and for their team. At the moment, in the AFL laws, it's stipulated to prevent injuries to players participating in a match so far as this objective can be reasonably achieved in circumstances where Australian football is a body contact sport. So what does this mean? Well, the AFL's values system is going to ensure that players don't get hurt. This leaves the umpire in a difficult situation if the player with the ball is initiating the high contact. The umpire must follow the laws of the game and therefore award a free kick to the player being tackled. This incentivises the action of the player being tackled to try and initiate high contact. But there's a problem with this. There's no onus on the player with the ball to protect themselves. So my opinion is that part of the solution is to ensure that the player with the ball is not maximising their chance of being tackled high. This would ensure that the player with the ball abides by the law of the game to minimise injuries to players. So I've got a solution, and it came from watching the NBA. In the NBA, players have been playing for fouls for years. In the last 10 or 20 years, the NBA has been maximised for offense. To do this, the NBA devised a strategy to officiate the game to favour the offensive player. This included defensive tactics like hand checking being banned, and also included protecting the shooter's space. This naturally led to certain players gaming the system and shooting in a way where they would land forward or backward from where they would normally land to ensure that they made contact with the defender, resulting in a foul. So the laws put in place to protect the shooter allows the shooter to simultaneously game this by contorting their body or landing forward of where they normally would to ensure that they made contact with the defender. You can see how this is similar to the AFL situation. You have an AFL player contorting their body in such a way that's unnatural to ensure that they get a foul from the opposition. In the NBA, this led to certain players getting a significant amount of fouls. But what it impacted was, one, the watchability of the game, but two, fans were starting to get confused and also start to turn on the player getting lots of fouls, saying, oh, it's a cheap trick and that kind of thing, which all things considered can hurt the brand of the game. So what has the NBA done? This season, the NBA has introduced a rule that if the shooting player moves their body in such a way to try and draw contact from the defensive player, then they won't get given the foul. And these shooting players who got so good at it in the last few years were so confused and quite annoyed to begin with. One, it affected their stat line, and two, they were just expecting that call. But after 20 or so games, and the NBA sticking hard and fast by how they were going to adjudicate this, the players wisened up and stopped doing this. So, how can the AFL use this in our game? If you incentivise an action, it will keep happening because you condition this behaviour. But if you take that away, so you take away the free kick, then the player is going to quickly stop that, because this is not the optimal way to ensure that your team gets an advantage. If there's no free kick called, moving your body in such a way like this to get a high tackle will no longer be the best way to get an advantage to your team. Eventually this play will stop. So what's my solution? I say play on. If a player ducks their head, play on. If a player drops their knees to get high contact, play on. And if a player lifts their arm up after being tackled legally and gets high contact, play on. It's the best solution for umpires, for fans. Play on, play on, play on. Yes, there will always be subjectivity in our game, in the game that we love, but let's take away some of this subjectivity and make it easier for our umpires and easier to watch as a fan. We want a game that isn't decided by a free kick in the last minute. So that's it for me on ducking. I love footy on this channel, and if you're still watching, you must love it too. Please leave a like and a comment and subscribe. Tell me what your thoughts are. I'd love to hear them. There'll be plenty more videos coming out on this channel. Peace out.